Welcome to the 2021 Charlotte County Virtual Agribusiness Tour. My name is Christy Popa and I am the 4-H Extension Agent with the University of Florida, IFAS, Charlotte County. I will be serving as your guide for this tour. Agriculture is the science of farming, including cultivation of the soil for growing crops and the rearing of animals to provide food, wool, and other products. This tour serves as a means to remind consumers like you where your food and textiles come from, including the process and people involved in producing it. Did you know that the United States produces the most abundant, diverse, safest, and most inexpensive food in the world, yet the agricultural activities involved in its production are often out of sight to you as the consumers? This tour is a recreational and educational effort used to increase your knowledge of where your food comes from. We hope that you will enjoy this adventure as we explore the history of agriculture and various agricultural operations in Charlotte County. We will visit 4 Charlotte County farms to gain a better understanding of a few of the different types of ag businesses and what they bring to this community. We will begin our tour today with a look back at agriculture in Charlotte County over the years. In the late 1800s, urban residents often visited rural areas in search of relief from heat and the business of the city. Just after World War II, people visited farming communities for a change of scenery and recreational opportunities. Sometimes agritourism and entertainment were combined into agritainment as the search for different types of recreation were found in rural farming communities. Agritourism such as this ag tour have offered Charlotte County residents a front row seat concerning where their food and fiber comes from for the last 50 years. Charlotte County has a rich agricultural commerce documented since the early 1930s, including their principal agricultural activities of truck farming and fruit growing, as well as stock raising, where 71,123 acres of pasture held 4,205 head of cattle back in 1935. For close to 500 years, the cattle industry has contributed greatly to Florida's economy and natural resources. Florida cattle ranchers serve as stewards of the land as they work to provide consumers, such as you, with quality beef products through the use of best management practices. As of the 2020 census, there were 929,000 head of cattle in Florida and 15,000 beef producers throughout the state. Florida ranks 13th overall in cattle production nationwide. With the predominance in cow-calf production, the majority of weaned calves 6 to 10 months old, weighing 300 to 600 pounds, are shipped to stockers and feedlots. These cattle are made up of the top cattle breeds including Angus, Brahman, Charolais, and Hereford, along with many crossbred cattle. Let's take a look at 6th generation Charlotte County Cattle Ranch, Farabee Cattle Company. Hello, my name is Christy Popa. I'm the 4-H Extension Agent here in Charlotte County, and I'm here with Rusty Daughtry. He is a 4th generation cattle rancher here in Charlotte County, and we're going to start our Charlotte County virtual agribusiness tour by asking him to give us a little history about his ranch here.
Well, like you said, I'm 4th generation. My great-grandfather acquired this land in a land swap, and I think it was 52. I've actually seen some of the paperwork on it, and we've been here ever since. So, still going strong.
And there's 2 more generations.
I got two grandbabies and 2 daughters, and so that's 5 and 6 right there. And hopefully it continues on after I'm long gone. So how would you say cattle ranching has changed in this area or in Florida in general since you've been doing it? In a lot of ways, it's a lot more technical, it's a lot more advanced. The vaccines, the wormers, just the care has increased quite a bit in a good way. The cattle market's always up and down. It's always going to be up and down. It's like the stock market is what I say. It's, it's either good or it's bad.
Right.
So
Very good. What are some goals for your cattle? Do you raise them solely for market? Do you market to other people? Do you sell off heifers to?
I do both. Mostly I do the market up at Arcadia, sell all my beef there, but sometimes I do raise heifers, wean them off, raise them up to whatever size, 700, 800 pounds, and then sell them to individuals looking to increase their herds.
So we're talking probably to people who've never been to a cattle ranch before, so can you explain to them the difference between a heifer and a cow and what people are looking for when they purchase them at the market?
Yeah, a cow is obviously a mother, full grown. She's had a calf, so that qualifies her as a cow. The heifers are never had calves, and they're younger, obviously, and you're just looking for good conformation, good bone, good length of the back, because ultimately all the beef you're looking for the producers at the meat packing plants want these good quality animals.
So when you talk about going to the processing plant, can you give us a little run through of how you get from the farm to someone's plate?
That's a long journey, but it's basically we raise here, we sell to the market, average 500 or 600 pounds. They usually go out west somewhere, Texas, Kansas, Nebraska. They go on wheat stubble fields, rye fields, and then they raise up to about probably 800 pounds there, and then they go into a feedlot and they get fed a ration, and believe me, it is a science. They have it down to now what they feed them, and they get them up to about 1,100 pounds, then they go to slaughter, and then they're distributed to the grocery stores.
Okay. How do you choose which cattle breeds you maintain here on your ranch? Do you have a specific breed that you have here?
Not really. They're a mixed breed. I'm leaning heavy towards the Brangus right now, so I'm trying to lean in that direction. But there's several good quality animals out there that, you know, the Brangus, Angus, you know, the Brayford, Charolais. It all depends on what your individual likes are, really, what works best for you.
Right. Okay. How many head of cattle do you manage here?
There's 100 head of brood cows here, okay. And I'm running 6 bulls. So.
And how many acres do they run on?
400 acres.
Okay.
So.
What kind of care is required throughout the year?
Other than fences.
A lot of fence work, right?
Yeah, but no, as you guys probably saw coming in, I have a lot of hay this time of year. I feed molasses this time of year, all through the winter, which is a high protein supplement lick. And with the hay, that carries them through because the grass obviously doesn't grow well in the winter.
Right.
And I also feed them granular mineral and salt blocks. They have that 24/7 year round, the mineral.
Okay. And how often do you work cows?
Roughly 3 times, 4 times a year, depending on the weather, the condition of the cattle. It all kind of varies in there.
And when you work them, what exactly are you doing?
They get wormer, because they do pick up worms from eating off the ground. They get vaccinated against several, like 8-way blackleg, and there's which is a multi-vaccine. They get a D-lice put on them.
So a little bit of everything.
A little bit. They get, yeah, they kind of like going to get your checkup, your physical. You get it all, you know.
Right. Would you say you have issues that Florida ranchers are facing right now? What are some big hot topics that you all have to deal with?
Always the market. And it's just like right now, it's freezing up north. Everything's snowed in, iced in, and therefore transporting cattle from here up there is at a lull, which backs everything up, which backs the price back down. So that's one of the big issues right now this time of year.
Okay. What type of grazing do you utilize? Do you do rotational grazing, or?
Yes, I do. I rotate the cattle around, you know, yearly. Like I said, it all depends on the time of year, the condition of the grass. and so that determines how often I move them from pasture to pasture.
Okay. We see a lot of people come in bringing weeds in. Do you encounter a lot of pasture weeds here, or?
Yes, soda apple and dog fennels are my mortal enemies.
So you're taking care of that often then?
Yes, that's a constant battle year round. It doesn't stop. It's just like fence work. It's one of the things you just do year round.
Okay. So I guess the last one is, how do you and your family serve as stewards of the land here?
Look, this land's been in my family for a long time. I think more of this land than anybody else possibly could. So I definitely do the best I can to take care of it. Anything I do is for this place and to maintain it as natural as I can.
Well, it's beautiful here. As a kid, I remember coming camping here and
oh, yeah.
doing all of that fun stuff. So, yeah.
Good.
Very nice. Thank you so much for allowing us to be
Absolutely.
here. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes. Now let's talk to Rusty's daughter, Jessie Tanksley, a fifth-generation rancher, and her role in the family cattle business. All right, I'm here with Jessie Daughtry. She is a sixth generation in this ranch, and so do you want to tell us a little bit about when you started and what you're doing?
Basically born and raised in the cow pen since as long as I can remember. My daughter's 3, she'll be down here shortly. I like to get the easy job of the de-lice, and so I'm not in the back anymore, but that's where I started and I grew up and learned all of my respect for the industry and the hard work that goes into ranching.
Very good. Do you enjoy watermelon as a juicy summer snack? Florida is historically a top watermelon producing state, often ranked #1 in watermelon production. Florida produces 20% of the total watermelons grown in the entire United States. These watermelons brought in over $157 million in 2020. With over 26,300 acres of watermelon planted in Charlotte County, our local watermelon farmers work tirelessly to provide you with delicious and nutritious watermelon, which will provide you with 25% of your daily vitamin C per cup consumed. Watermelon made of 92% water is a great pre or post workout snack, or just a delicious treat on a hot summer day. For 10-year-old Hayden Chastain, growing watermelons runs in the family. Here's Hayden and his family talking about what it's like to grow watermelons here in Charlotte County.
Hello, my name is Craig Fry. I am the multi-county horticultural agent in Charlotte County, as well as the rest of Southwest Florida. And this is part of our Charlotte County Agribusiness Tour. Hayden, how are you today?
I'm good.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Hayden Chastain. I am 10 years old. I'm in 4th grade. And yeah, that's really...
All right, so you have a lot of Melon One stuff on. What is Melon One to you?
Well, it's my dad's business that he sells his watermelons to, and it's the company that I'm going to sell my watermelons to. So I think it's cool that I'm going to be in Melon One. That's
great. So is this your field here?
Yes.
All right, how many watermelon do you have here? How many
around
acres?
like 2,000 or around there.
Yeah. Whoops. How many, is this your first time growing watermelons?
Yes.
And so why did you decide to grow watermelons by yourself?
I just saw, like, over the years I had to go out with my dad, and he would take me to the watermelon field and I'd look at it, and I just thought it was really cool, so I decided I wanted to like make my own, and I thought it'd be cool. Okay.
So what's the process in planting watermelon? How much of this have you done?
Well, my dad made the field with his gramps while I went to school, but so my dad and my gramps, he made the fence and he laid out the whole field, and then he brought me over to the field, and we kind of like put the fertilizer and made the little things so we could put the plastic over it. And then he got the drip tape and the plastic, and I'd hold it and he would put it over, and then after that we had to put dirt. We'd get the shovels and we'd put it on there, and then the dirt would like keep it down. And then like a week later, I guess, or a little bit after, we went out and we planted all the watermelons, and a couple days later there was a couple that we missed on accident, and we just planted those, and we had a couple pollinators left, so we just planted those wherever we could. And then after like a week or so, this is what it's turned to.
Great. And so when do you hope to be able to harvest these?
In about like 2 months or 3 months or 2. I don't know. Right. Probably 3.
And then how much do you think you'll be able to earn from this?
I don't really know yet, because I don't really know how it's going to all turn out, but maybe a little bit over 1,000 or that. Okay. Probably a little bit more.
And who do you have helping you?
My dad, my mom, and my brother all are helping me make it.
Okay. And you're paying them all?
Yes, maybe.
So tell us about your family growing watermelon.
Well, my dad has been doing this with his dad for a long time. Ever since I was born, that's all I know. And I think it goes back a little long ways, but I'm not for sure on how far it goes back. And yeah, I just know that they've been doing this for a while, and Chastain Farms has been around for a while. So yeah, it's kind of all I know. Okay. I'm not that familiar with it.
Tell us, so you grew up doing watermelon farming, grew up with your family doing it all the time. Tell us a story or two about what it's like growing up on the farm.
Well, sometimes, we are homeschooled, so sometimes my mom would be like, okay, it's time for school, and then my dad would be in and he'd say, hey, I want you to come with me to the field, and be like, yay. So yeah, then we'd go out with him, maybe help him a little bit, and then we'd come home, and then we'd probably have to finish the school, or it'd be too late to.
Yeah. So now that you have your own watermelons, what does a typical day look like for you?
Well, a typical day of coming out here there were 2 days that weren't really typical because we only have to do them once. Days whenever we made the tape and everything, and we planted the watermelons. But just a couple days ago, we came out here and watered them in 2 times because we had to put the fertilizer, and then we had to put medicine out for them. And we've done that about 2 times. And now we don't really have to do that anymore. My dad's just gonna put the sprayers on, and I guess I could just spray it and that would be done. Mm-hmm. So that's a typical day of being out here.
So what would you say to other kids who might be interested in farming but are not really sure?
Well, if you're going to, you would have to prepare yourself for not thinking it'd be too easy, because you have to plant, and that's probably the worst part of it. And after that, probably it's mostly downhill. So yeah, just don't think it's going to be too easy, because I thought it was going to be kind of hard to plant all this. And but yeah, after doing that, it's actually kind of enjoyable. It's kind of fun coming out and spraying it, and I just think it's fun, so that's what I'd probably tell them.
Yeah. Are you going to invite some friends over to harvest?
Well, yeah, I do have one friend, and at her school they're learning about plants, and she said that she's studying about it, and maybe she could come out and look at it next time we come out and spray.
Great. Is there anything else that you want to tell people in Charlotte County about watermelon production here?
Well, I think it's cool to do it, and it's kind of fun actually, and I enjoyed it, and that's really it.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing with us today.
You're welcome.
Our family history, it goes back a long time. I know my great-granddad, he farmed, and then he raised his son, Cicero Chastain. He was raised in South Georgia. He came down to Punta Gorda back in the 50s. He brought his kids down, my dad, my uncle, and my aunt. And my dad and his brother, they farmed for a long time together. And then I started farming with my dad, and now my he's farming with me, so.
Great, that's a lot of generations.
Yeah.
So what makes Charlotte County a hotspot for watermelon production?
Well, it's a perfect climate. I mean, we're one of the first people to come in with watermelons, and it's a good market for us because we kind of set the market for the year. And it's just a good climate for watermelons.
Yeah. How much acres of watermelon do you all grow here?
In the past, we've done anywhere between 100 to 200 acres a year.
And then tell us a little bit about your relationship with Melon One.
Well, Melon One, the owner is my cousin, so that makes it kind of nice. He's the broker, we're the farmer. We know who we're selling to, so that makes it nice. Someone you can work with.
Sure. All right. So what are some of the obstacles for growing here?
I think one of the worst obstacles is fusarium. It's always like, we'll plant a crop and you might have a good clean crop that year, but you can't go back in there on that land for 7 years because it gets in the soil and it takes time to get rid of. And besides that, I guess would be a frost. You know, you get a crop growing and you'll get a frost come in, it just knocks you back from, you got to start over pretty much.
So there's a lot of misconceptions about sustainability of farming, especially commercial farms. General public not really quite understanding how much you all value the land and stewardship of the land. So how would you want to share, what would you want to share with the general public about your take on sustainability and how you approach farming?
I feel like our approach to sustainability is we're more interested in it than anybody else is because it's our future. You know, we take care of the land for the next crop. It's in our interest. I mean, we're the first ones that worry about it.
So what do you think are some potential challenges in the future?
Potential challenges, I guess, could be from other countries. You know, importing kind of hurts the market sometimes. Could be just regulations and just disease. You know, trying to find a variety that'll grow without constant pressure of disease.
Yeah. Why do you love the farming life?
You're outside. You're I don't know. You're kind of out away from everything else. You're away from the town, and it's kind of like your world. You know, it's nice.
Great. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us today?
You? Well, I'm proud of him. This is his idea, so I'm supporting him.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for letting us come to your farm today and sharing with us some of your history and your story. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Awesome.
All right, so tell us a little about yourself and about Melon One.
So Melon One itself was started in 1997. So we've rolled on past 20 years as watermelon growers, packers, and shippers. We start all the way south in Immokalee, Florida. We travel all the way up the road as far as Delaware and Maryland, and then as far west as Kentucky and Indiana. So we grow, pack, and ship watermelons in 8 states. In Charlotte County, we have around 1,000 acres of our own Melon One watermelons that our team grows. And then outside of that, we partner with family farms, people just like Hayden, although he may be also our youngest farmer. We have a lot of partnerships like that with family farms, and we buy every watermelon they grow. That's our responsibility to then get it to retail. So we have a retail division, a wholesale division. We manage our own transportation to get the product there. So ultimately, all these growers are growing under the Melon One brand. That's the sticker you're seeing on the watermelon. My role is, so I'm in sales. I handle all of our new business, so gather in new accounts and bring them in, take care of them for the first few years. But I also get to come out and partner with people, which is pretty great at the farming level. This particular one's very special. So my father, Rich Chastain, is one of the owners of Melon One. His father and Hayden's grandfather originally moved to Florida with their father when they were young adults and started farming in Charlotte County. So as time's gone on, it's pretty neat. It's a unique relationship. We have a lot of respect for everyone that works with us, but it's really special when you get to do some business with family like that.
Yeah. So why is it important for a family farm to have a distribution partner like Melon One?
Well, it's hard to do it all. You know, there's so much stress in farming already. There's so many things out of your control. So to me, it needs to be somebody that you trust. It needs to be somebody that you believe can get the job done for you. You need to have a really good personal and business relationship. But then you can focus on growing the absolute best crop you can and let somebody else make sure they're getting it to market for you and bringing back a settlement so you can keep doing it year after year.
Great. All right, so what's the average size of your watermelon grower?
In acreage?
Yeah.
I would say the average is probably around 200. We have some folks who do 75s, typically the smallest, pre-Hayden, but we'll get you there. And then we have some growers that grow over 900 acres. So it's absolutely a mixed bag. We have some folks that, especially in South Florida, watermelon production's one of their only crops. As we go up the road, we see a lot more where, they're also growing peanuts, cotton, soybean, corn. Yeah.
And then where do you ship to?
So as Melon One, we ship really all over all up and down the eastern United States and throughout the Midwest. All of our watermelons stay in the US though, ultimately. Every now and then we do have a few partners in Canada that can go up that way. There's not a lot of volume up there. So yeah, typically they all stay within the United States. So as we start our Florida crop at the end of March, early April, they'll primarily stay on the East Coast.
Okay, so when do you start harvesting, start selling, and when do you kind of finish your season?
So our domestic season will start around the 20th of March, and it'll go all the way up through the year, and we'll finish around the 20th of September or so. For the traditional, what they call the domestic season, we are really fortunate, right? We're in Charlotte County, so we grow a fall crop back down here, and that'll take us all the way through December. So for 9 full months of the year, we have domestic watermelon supply.
Okay. And what makes Melon One unique compared to other businesses out there?
Well, in the produce world, we're unique in that we only do one thing. We're kind of a one-trick pony or whatever tagline people have for that, but we try to be really, really good at one thing. So we're not in any other types of melons or pumpkins or berries, which is common to see with watermelon shippers, and we do it year-round. So, like I said, we do one thing, we try to do it really good.
Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing with us today and inviting us a little bit into your story.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Did you know that the reptile industry in Florida as a whole is valued between $50 and $200 million? Charlotte County is included in this industry and has a unique reptile farm called Iguanaland. Iguanaland is owned and operated by Mr. Ty Park and is located in rural Punta Gorda. Mr. Park's goal is to operate an alternative agricultural operation by raising rare reptiles, especially turtles and lizards.
Good morning. My name is Ralph Mitchell. I'm the County Extension Director and with UF-IFAS Extension with Charlotte County. This morning we're visiting with Mr. Ty Park of Iguanaland. This is a very interesting farm, conservation, agritainment type business here, and we're going to let Mr. Park tell us about what he does and some of the history of it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ty Park. You can call me Ty. You don't have to call me Mr. Park.
Very good.
Pretty casual around there, and I just want this to be a fun place for people to visit. I've been here kind of quietly for the last 14 years. Right, doing conservation work, mainly with the very rare iguanas that's found in actually all over the world. There are 45 species of iguana, and it just happens that the iguanas in Florida get the bad rap, and that's just one species that we're talking about. There are many species of iguana that are endangered all over the world. Some of them were thought to be extinct in the 60s, and with the conservation work, we got the population back, and of course, every animal we save, it's good for the world. So, right now, this is a zoo, but also it's a agricultural place because we are going to do a lot of turtles and tortoises. We are zoned agriculture, and that's just since last year. So I'm still learning a lot. A zoo part, I probably got it, but agricultural part, I'm still learning from experts like you. So I'm really excited. Purpose of Iguana Land, one is to educate the children, right? And number two, we want to be a friendly place for research, like university scholars, even the graduate students. And I even had one PhD student come here, did his PhD study.
Interesting.
And then the third part I want to do is raise enough fund to help conservation work all around the world. We had a couple of events here called Iguana Fest. In 2 days, we raised $120,000 plus. We want to continue to do things like that. We also want to do total conservation now. And my goal is to raise $250,000 a year for conservation work. So it's a very mix of stuff that we're doing. Agricultural work, producing turtles, showing off some of the endangered species that we have. It's mainly really for educating the general public.
Now, we just looked around the property a little bit. How many acres you got here and how you've got it set up?
We have 12 acres. We have Chelonians in the back where we're going to probably have about 150 species.
And that's all turtles?
I'm sorry?
That's all turtles?
Yes, right, turtles. Chelonian is a general term for turtles and tortoises, the shelled animal.
Yep.
And then in the back we have what we call a iguana breeding center.
Okay.
That will be off limits. We're gonna have that fenced in, and then but we're gonna give probably 2 guided tours daily for that area. And we're gonna probably charge $10 extra. The entrance to the zoo itself will be $20 plus tax, and $10 extra for the breeding center tour, and 100% of that would be saved for conservation work.
Okay.
So,
how many employees do you have?
Right now we have 9, I believe.
Wow. Okay.
That includes me. Yeah, I believe 9. And before we open, we're probably gonna double that.
Wow.
Right now we're doing just maintenance, feeding animals. The cages itself, we wanna, before we open obviously for the public, every cage has to be perfect, right? So if plants are overgrown, we need to trim them and stuff. That part we are not really doing. The plants are tall, we'll leave them because it's good for the animal and we don't have public yet. So we'll probably double that number before we open.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Where do you see the operation like in 5 years?
Oh wow. Hopefully we get a couple of million people, 200,000 people.
Okay.
I love a couple of million, but my goal is to 200 to 300,000 visitors a year, and hopefully they go out thinking about conservation of all animals, right? Especially the reptiles and amphibian, which is my part. A lot of times reptiles get the bad rap, but they are vital part of ecosystem. Without them, we'll probably have no crop because rats and mice would eat all the grains and stuff. Like a lot of things that had happened in places like India before. They kill cobras and stuff, and pretty soon the rats would, be booming and they'd be eating all the food and stuff. So there's this reptile as part of ecosystem, and it's very important part of ecosystem, and people need to know that also.
And up and down Vermont Road here, of course, there's people growing crops or grazing cattle and citrus and all that. But you're doing something different with not only we'll call it agritainment, where people come to be educated but entertained because everything is so visual here. But also that you're doing work to propagate or captive breed a lot of these reptiles for conservation, but also for sale, hopefully in the future.
Right. A lot of these animals are, you can't really, the government, for instance, the island are self-contained ecosystem, and some of the animals that we raise here, they could have different kind of disease than what they have in a native island, for instance. So there is a no-no among scientists having animals from different countries, although it's the same species, going back to the island. So knowing that, my goal is to raise them, still propagate them, sell them to the pet market because there are a huge booming hobby market here. And some of the animals are $5,000 each as a baby, some of the turtles because they're so rare. And take the money, portion of that money, and give it back to the island for conservation work. Like for instance, we could buy a plot of land to for conservation, for instance, or we could give money to people doing population study, because scientists are always looking for funding, and those fundings are very hard to get. Like cancer research, those things are easy to get funding for because people really believe that. But reptile conservation is not, up there in conservation. I mean, the fundraising world. So that's one of the parts that I want to help with. So.
And you had mentioned about the food sources. You're having to raise some, but you're having to buy some out. What kind of food sources do you get and raise for your animals?
We have a lot of animals here are vegetarians, and their food basically are produce, right? Like romaine lettuce, kale, mustard green, dandelion, even the leaves of the tree like hibiscus that we grow around it. Then we also have the nursery over here for raising food. But that's just part of what we feed. We probably could only raise right now about a quarter of what we feed here. So we do buy about $6,000 worth of produce and fruits and vegetable a month. And it'd probably be close to the $10,000 when we add other stuff like supplement and the dry food, etc., to feed all the animals here. So yeah, I do need help finding source for produce, especially the fruit. I think we probably got that because we raised a lot of papayas and stuff. But we definitely do need help with the produce itself, like the green part.
At capacity, how many animals will this house?
My goal is to, within a year, I don't think I could do it at the opening day, be the largest reptile zoo farm in the world.
Wow.
That means we're probably going to start with about 250 different species of reptiles and amphibians. So yeah, it'll be thousands of animals. I can't tell you exact number. I think we have close to 2,000 animals now, the breeding populations and some of the exhibits. But we're probably gonna at least another 1,000 added to it, different species. Species-wise, right now we're not even at 100. So for us to reach, 250 plus, it's gonna take work. But I know I've been in this business enough to get the sources. Right now, I don't want to really get them too early because that means more work for my keeper. So that's when I say that we want to double up on employees because we'll be adding more animals. So.
Okay, so Ty, we're here with, you said, an Aldabra tortoise here, and we were talking earlier about predator issues and that type of issue that you might experience as far as loss of animals. What's going on with that?
Okay, I've been here since 2007, May of 2007. This is really hard to believe because almost every visitor asked me the same question. We had one incident in 14 years.
Wow.
And that was an opossum that chewed on the shell of a turtle. And I'm just really amazed that we have not had issues with predators. And I'm thinking about raccoons and big blue herons and stuff. So far, we've been really lucky. But having said that, they keep us on our toes, obviously.
And you called him the elephant there for a minute. What's going on with him? He's quite impressive.
Okay, he's very offended right now because you called him.
Oh.
This is Allie. Right? Okay. I believe she's going on 43 now.
Wow.
She was raised as a little baby.
Wow.
Actually, a friend of mine, his name is Rob, went to Shell Island, and I believe they picked up 10 of these little babies and brought them back. Obviously legal. They are still imported actually from Shell Island. There's a farm there who breed these things. And he bought them, and now she's 43 almost. She has started laying eggs. I'm looking for a big, giant male. Unfortunately, we're finding out that even a male, even at 40, can't really breed these guys because they actually need to be, I think, 60 to almost 100 before they could actually breed.
Well, and that brings up artificial insemination. Does that go on with reptile breeding?
Yes, but very rarely. It's a very difficult thing to do. I've seen it done with endangered species where there's only literally 2 animals left in the whole world. They've done that before, but animals like this, I've done that with some of the iguanas before.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have a PhD student did that kind of research here. All right. So, but this is Ellie. She's very friendly. You come to iguana land, you're gonna probably have a chance to pet her if you want. But yeah, I mean, they live. There's one giant, total, I think I want to say 179 years old and still alive.
Wow.
So she'll definitely live another 3 times as much, maybe 250 or more. Yeah, they're literally indestructible like tank. I'd say she's about 300 plus pounds right now, so we can't lift her anymore.
Well, not only did I insult her, I scared her because she hasn't moved a bit since I got here.
She loved being scratched, and that's what she's waiting for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and of course, they're just slow to start with, obviously, their lives. I think that's one of the reasons why they live so long.
That's true.
Right?
So what genus and species do they have here?
Okay, so this is Cyclura pinguis. There's only 13 of them in the whole U.S. and I believe 4 zoos, including us. This is just recent acquisition. We are going to breed these animals, and actually, this is one species so rare, we're going to put them back in the wild.
Wow.
We have found an island that used to occur in, but that's extinct on that island now. And we are thinking about putting them back into that island. That's one of the program. Yeah, this is amazing animal. 13 of them in the whole U.S.
So I guess that's a male there then
right,
too,
so
right?
This is a male.
Yeah.
He's in a temporary cage right now. And he will be going into that exhibit up front.
But he's very handleable, so I guess
he's about 35 years old.
Wow.
Matter of fact, he was one of the confiscated animal the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services gave to Fort Worth Zoo.
Oh, cool.
Okay, they do ownership on these animals. They loaned them to us so we could breed them and take the baby and do conservation work with them. So.
Okay, Ty, you've got an amazing collection of different color morphs of iguanas here, and tell us more about that.
Well, actually, let's start with this one.
Okay.
This is one of the albino morphs. There are different types of albino morphs. You could see this has a lot more orange, yellow, red, that I've been trying to produce this color morph for 12 years.
Wow.
This is the culmination of that.
Wow.
All right. We use different type of colors, albino with the different type of albino, get something like this. Having said that, when we talked about people are worried about if they escape, what happens and stuff. None of the iguanas that we have here, especially albino, because something this bright will be eaten by a bird.
Stick right out like a sore thumb.
Right. But having said that, none of them would survive in this area because in the wintertime it gets too cold. That's why you don't see a population of green iguanas moving up here yet. I think they're still in the Miami south of maybe, I don't even know there are thriving population of iguanas in even Naples. I know there are some different type of iguanas in the Boca Grande. I know they're doing a lot of damage. That's a different type of iguana. These iguanas are more of an arboreal animal. So when you get cold, they fall down. And more, the other stuff that Boca Grande, they are diggers. And so they get under the house. They get under all kind of, they burrow. So they could withstand the temperature much higher because they're under a heated house sometimes. All right, so that's been a problem. But these guys, even when they escape, they live through the summer and they're dying in the wintertime due to the cold.
Mr. Park's breeding success results in high-value hatchlings that he can sell to collectors. The income from this venture is turned back into the farm to support operations, staff, and feeding the reptiles. A portion of the income realized from the captive breed operation goes into reptile conservation efforts, of which Mr. Park is well involved. His breeding efforts help maintain rare and protected reptile species by maintaining and increasing stock in captivity. Mr. Park's passion for reptile conservation includes sharing his knowledge with others, as he plans to open Iguanaland as an educational attraction for the public. This additional phase of his farm will provide agritainment as an income stream to support his overall operation. Iguanaland is truly a unique alternative agricultural niche venture based on science, conservation, and economical principles well suited to our regions in Florida. Permaculture, by definition, is an approach to land management that adopts arrangements observed in healthy natural settings. Permaculture has many aspects, including ecological design, where a compatible assortment of plant types are interplanted in close proximity, resulting in what may be called a food forest or a food garden. Forest gardening is a low-maintenance, plant-based production system based on incorporating edible fruits, herbs, vine crops, and vegetables used for human consumption. Key to this concept is companion planting, where several plants are intermixed, taking advantage of space and different plant types. Charlotte County has a small farm using these practices with an income-generating demonstration and research setting called Peace River Organics in Punta Gorda. Peace River Organics is a niche alternative agricultural venture which grows many specialty tropical and subtropical crops for sale, propagates plants for sale, and offers consultation services for clients interested in implementing this type of farming. Mr. Matthew Reese, proprietor for Peace River Organics, represents a new generation of small-scale farmers interested in sustainable practices and diverse crops. His farm is expanding and is both beautiful and an interesting demonstration of what can be done on small acreage property.
Good morning. I'm Ralph Mitchell. I'm the County Extension Director and Horticulture Agent with UF IFAS Extension, Charlotte County. And today we're at the Peace River Organics and with its owner, Matthew Reese. And we're just going to go over some of the different bits and pieces about how it started. And so Matt, welcome, and tell us how this all started.
So this all started about 5 years ago. I was working in a small nursery at my house, and I was really fortunate. A family member of mine helped me to acquire a larger piece of property, and she gave me kind of a budget and said, you know, I want you to take what you're doing and take it out and do something with it. She saw that I had some skill and knowledge, and knowing what I know about tropical fruit, I was able to find this location being a really interesting microclimate, being on the south side of the harbor. We do get protected from a lot of the cold fronts that come through, and it helps me kind of extend into that zone 10A USDA zone. And I have options like coconuts and mangoes and jackfruit. Wow. And some of these are still pushing it here, but I feel more comfortable pushing it here than I would if I was further out of town.
True, true. And you're pretty much, are you within the city limits of Punta Gorda?
I'm about a block away from technically the city limit. There's a funny line, so I don't know if I would be annexed in or out in the next few years or not. This property was actually rezoned a few years back as multifamily residential. So this is part of the expansion of the town. And I do have options if I wanted to do cottages or things like that. I have that option for this property. So it's not a true ag site, just being so close to town. So my goals and intentions here have shifted because I do want agriculture, but I also know that I'm in a different tax system and I'm in a different land use system, so I have to do things a little bit differently here.
And you said how many acres here? 7?
Yeah, this parcel here is about 7 acres. It extends all the way back to the train tracks, and we're just across from South County Park, if anyone knows where that is. And then we're actually in the process of acquiring the property next door, which is another 5.5 acres. So we'll be about 12.5.
And it's pretty much like an Eden here as far as the gardens you set up, which are not only, well, productive, but also edible. What kind of plants are you growing here?
So I have a pretty broad collection. Like I said, my intention here isn't so much of a traditional agriculture. A lot of what I've done here, like in this particular area, you'll notice I have these jackfruit trees. I actually have a whole selection of them. If we walk around, I can show you about 12 to 15 varieties of jackfruit. I'm experimenting with different types. And I'm doing that with a lot of different species. It's a selection process for me to find out what genetics work the best in our climate here and our soil type and the high water table, which is one of my big challenges on this site. And then how do they interact with each other? And that's a big part of what I've gotten into, is this whole regenerative agroforestry model of mimicking natural systems, building soil, and finding ways that plants interact with each other to help with pest problems and disease problems and things like that.
So it's a demonstration garden, a little bit of research in there.
Absolutely.
But you're also producing for sale too.
Yes. Yes. So a lot of my main trees are still young. You know, like the jackfruit trees, a lot of these have started to fruit last year. We're at about year 5, or for these probably year 4. But I do have areas where I am in production with, especially with bananas. That was one of my first. Bananas, sugarcane, pineapples were kind of my first entry crops, because you can get something out of those just in a couple years.
Right.
In the meantime, I've got mango trees that are developing now, and if we go over there, you'll see that they're 100% in flower right now. We're going to be setting a nice crop this year. And as I said, I have a selection, so it's a little complicated for me to keep things in order. So I have things in rows, but I have to have each individual tree labeled. And when I sell my mangoes, I sell them as a specialty variety box, and I'll have them all labeled, and I have to go through all that fun stuff.
You got a magic marker on each one there?
Absolutely. Actually, I print out stickers, and I put stickers on them. Yeah.
And it's not only what you're producing, but how you've put intercropping and such together that we'll see in a minute.
Absolutely.
Cool. So Matthew, what we've got here is just some examples of your intercropping, and you've got a lot of different types of tropical fruits and plants put in here. Can you tell us the reasoning and how you do this?
Yeah, sure. So one of the big things about planting an orchard is that when you plant a tree, it takes a long time to get something out of that tree, especially with a mango tree. Usually with a mango tree, you plant it from a small 3-gallon tree, and you're looking at probably 2 to 3 years before you start getting fruit, and really more like 5, 6, 7, 8 years before you get a really nice crop. And so with that being said, there's a lot of space underneath these trees and around these trees, and I'm using that to my benefit in the short term in the meantime. So when I actually started this grove, and you can't see it now in this particular part of the grove, but I actually had bananas growing in between each mango tree. So I've had, I mean, many racks of bananas out of this, just out of this one line.
Wow.
I organized mine to where every row was a different species of banana or different variety. And then I've got my mangoes are all labeled. You'll see.
I just noticed that, yeah.
You'll see down here, this one's called Little Gem. There's 60 varieties in here. They're all different, and most of them are new varieties.
Oh, that's cool. Huh.
So for those of you that aren't aware, the state of Florida has, I'm gonna make a big claim, it has the best mango collection in the world. We've been bringing all the genetics here for a long time, and we've been breeding and hybridizing, and we've come out with a ton of new varieties. A lot of that is credited to Zill, the Zill family on the East Coast.
Okay.
They've come out with a lot of new varieties in the last 10 years, and there's been other new varieties selected out of Florida for a while. But I've been focusing on a lot of the new and trying to find out how they perform in real life. You know, right now we have the mother trees, and they've started propagating them, but we don't really know how they perform.
Okay.
So this is a big trial selection process, and there's a big risk with that I don't know if all my trees are going to be performing. So for me to have bananas and pineapples and other things growing, I can still derive an income and get my name out there and have things happening while I'm waiting for all the fun stuff that I'm really looking forward to and excited about to happen.
Well, then people have to know what's a Little Gem taste like too, you know?
Exactly, and that's actually, I mean, you'll see.
Oh, there you go.
I do an annual mango tasting.
Oh, cool.
We didn't have one this previous year because of, as you know.
Yeah, as we know.
But the year before, we had it actually at the local distillery. There's Alligator Bay Distillers down the street. Nice big venue, covered area, which is really important in the summertime when we're actually harvesting. Is right in the middle of the rainy season. and people come from all over. I've had people come from the Caribbean. I've had people come from like Georgia. You know, we usually have a guest speaker that's a mango expert that comes. This year, now that we're going to be moving on to the farm, we're evaluating whether we want to have an event here or if we want to continue to have it at an off-site venue. But that's one of the funnest things, is to try them side by side. It helps someone make a decision. What variety would you want to plant in your backyard?
Right, because you're investing in that.
Absolutely.
Fruit. So is it just you here working right now?
It's mostly me. I do have volunteers that come and go, and I do have people that I'll pay if I have a big project. Like we did a remulch on these beds about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, and I brought in help just because whether I could physically do it or not, it's time consuming and exhausting. So, you know,
I can imagine.
So it's nice to have some help and get some people some experience so they can do this kind of stuff for themselves too.
Now, did I hear you correctly? I think when I visited with you earlier, are these irrigated or not?
No, actually, I don't have irrigation.
No irrigation, okay.
Which is a interesting point to see that I'm producing, and we'll go by the bananas. I'm producing bananas with no irrigation.
Wow.
And the big secret for that is probably not a secret to a lot of the viewers is the wood chips. You know, having intense amount of organic matter that's going to stay moist, keep the moisture at the soil level. The banana roots, believe it or not, even in a wet site, they'll actually come up into the mulch and travel. And you'll see these white noodles through all over the place if you start pulling it apart. And they get what they need, and I mean, they really pump through here. I've had a ton of bananas come out of this place. Wow. You can't tell now because I just took them out. I'm actually replanting bananas at the front, and I'm getting ready for another planting on this side over here.
How about fertilization? That's another question.
I don't use any chemical fertilizer, pesticide, fungicide, anything like that currently. Part of that is because I am doing an evaluation. So I want to see how these trees will perform with nothing. Okay. And then what I tell people, the same thing with my bananas and pineapples and things, is I'm going to be the guy that actually will recognize the difference when if I start using something like that. Because I know how it grows by itself with my own methods. If I add a little bit of chicken manure or whatever it is and see it pop up and perk up, I'll recognize that because I have a baseline. But so far, it's just been the wood chips. Occasionally, I'll come by with some ash from my fire, and I do make my own biochar as well.
Okay.
But nothing major. It's mostly the wood chips.
And since this is relatively new, there's probably no pest buildup anyways, as far as pest control.
There hasn't been, there's been some pests, but it hasn't been like a plague event or anything like that. One of the first years I had sweet potato was one of my main crops. And that went great for about 2 years, and then we had the weevil come in and damage the. There's a potato
I know
weevil.
That one. Yeah.
So I got through about 2 years, and then they found me, and and now I can grow a lot of leaves and not so many roots. Although I am selecting, I have a new selection of sweet potato that did really well for me this previous year that I'm going to plant back out and see how it performs.
How about white flies on that? Did that?
I haven't seen so much of that. Okay. I'm sure it's here.
Yeah.
But I haven't really noticed it being a big problem.
Well, show us in addition to the mangoes, it looks like cassava and some other plants here.
Yeah, so down the midline here, I do have pineapples that I've planted under here, and if you actually look in there, you'll see that almost all of them are flowering right now. They're they're pushing up right now. I had cassava in here. You can see the remnants of the banana there. This is actually an Inga species, ice cream bean.
Okay,
I believe it's Inga vera.
Wow.
This is the best nitrogen fixing tree that I have here for what I'm trying to do.
Right.
This doesn't lose its leaves like a lot of the Lucena and the Albesias and the interlobiums. It doesn't defoliate in the winter time, so you can actually keep shade or you can keep a biomass production. I could trim this and put it down if I want to. This one's cold hardy, unlike most Inga species that'll die back and just stunt every year.
I've seen them on Pine Island. Yeah.
These, for whatever reason, tend to grow faster in the wintertime than in the summertime. And I can show you, I have 3 or 4 year old trees at the front that are all flowering right now. And I'm expecting to get my first actual crop. I've had little crops here and there, but I have some trees in the front that I didn't prune this year because I wanted to produce a crop. and they're really good. Have you ever had a?
Yeah, I love them. I do love
They're about this long. You peel them
Yeah.
open, it tastes like cotton candy on the inside. Yeah, they're really nice. These are just here, I call this as a service species. They're just here to fix nitrogen.
Okay.
And I just cut them back because I don't really want to shade my mango trees.
Yep.
But I have them in other places where I do allow them to get bigger, and I use them differently.
And is your cassava doing okay?
Yeah, the cassava in here, I use cassava as an early space taker. It grows up fast and it'll actually shade the ground, and it helps to reduce some of the weed pressure. I do harvest it as much as I need, but I have way more than I need.
Wow.
So a lot of times I'll actually just cut it down and just let it sit there and either rot or resprout the next year. And I'm using it again as I'm cycling nutrients.
Okay.
That's what a lot of these service plants are here to be pruned regularly. And believe it or not, they grow better from the pruning. We were just talking about the Mexican sunflower. I can show you that when you cut them often, it stimulates them. They have a different attitude than if you let them get all the way into senescent stage.
Yeah.
They actually grow faster. There's like a growth curve with plants. You know, they kind of they start and they accelerate and then they kind of top off. But if you trim them before they top off, they go back into that accelerated growth, and it just keeps waving that way.
And you use a lot of the Tithonia, the Mexican sunflower, for what they use that for then, just as a mulch, or
it's used as a mulch. What I did when my trees were young, I used to have it similar to what's over there. I'd keep it relatively tall, and I would actually use it as cold and wind protection, especially in the wintertime for my trees, so that they wouldn't get blasted if we had a cold front. Now that my trees are getting some of their own size, I'm not as concerned about them. You know, the younger trees are more sensitive than older trees. So now I'm starting to keep my Tithonia really low, and I'm going to phase it out eventually. It's kind of had its time, and it's time to progress into a more mature forest system.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Matt, we're up here in sort of an ice cream bean grove here. Can you tell us more about what you use that for?
Yeah, so as I said before, this is a really, really excellent nitrogen fixing tree for my particular area, and I'm using it here as a partial shade and as an experimentation. I'm modeling a Brazilian style of agroforestry called syntropic agroforestry, and what I'm doing with it here is fixing nitrogen, providing some shade, and then I'm working with different pruning styles that I can defoliate these trees, allow the light to come in when I want it to, and use all that material as mulch on my fruit trees. What I did last year was I trimmed these all back right around this time of year, and then I seeded this whole pathway in with sun hemp.
Oh.
And I did the next path with pearl millet, and I did several different cover crops, and I was experimenting with them. And so this is kind of just a big experiment. Like as I said before, the whole place is. But what's interesting to me is to see that when you start to learn the patterns of your trees, in this case, I decided not to prune this row of trees this year. And if you look at the tops, you'll see that they're all flowering.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a crop of ice cream bean. And I don't know where you can buy ice cream bean. So I'll be the guy.
Well, the demand, how's the demand for ice cream bean?
The demand is good. I've already have orders for hundreds of seeds from several people.
Wow.
So the seeds are probably worth more than the fruit, to be honest with you.
Just for propagation or what?
Yep. Because the thing about, as you can see here, it's not like I planted one. I planted one every, in this case, probably 12 feet. I think you could plant them more densely if you wanted to. The nice thing about this type of tree is that you can cut it all the way down to the ground if you want to. And if you'll notice here.
Oh, you got some sprouts coming up already.
It just resprouts. So you can coppice or pollard these trees, and you're not going to kill them. So you can be generating some of your own biomass on site. So I have the blessing of having wood chips come to me because I'm in a neighborhood area and I can actually get to it. But if you're out in a rural area and you don't have access to that type of material, a big question is, if I don't want to use fertilizer, if I don't want to use some of the conventional techniques, how can I build up my soil? And the answer is you need something that grows fast that you can cut down and keep cycling, and especially something like this that doesn't need any help. This is the greenest tree on the farm. It gets no attention or help, never been watered.
Well, this brings up the other question. You got the eucalyptus here, and I know you were doing something different with the eucalyptus other than windbreak, but... Yep.
So back to the syntropic style of agroforestry I was mentioning in Brazil, they use, to establish an orchard system or a agroforestry system, they consider eucalyptus to be the father and banana to be the mother. Those are their two big biomass production plants that they use a lot of. And what we do, we treat eucalyptus as what's called the emergent species. So actually, as it grows up, we take the limbs out of the bottom, and then we get to a certain height that we want, we cut the top off. So we're allowing all the light to come in. And what the eucalyptus will do, much like the Inga, but in a different pattern, is it'll resprout vigorously.
Okay.
And so what you're doing is you're stimulating that tree to resprout, but it also, through its root association, stimulates everything else to grow quickly as well. So just as it's starting to go into that senescent, remember that curve I was talking about? It starts to peak, you tip it, and then you set it off into another growth spurt. It actually pushes that into your other trees. And it's really interesting science. If you follow Elaine Ingram, and if you follow some of these people that are getting into soil science, this is kind of on the edge of that. And the eucalyptus, the reason it's used is because it's so tough and it grows so fast, and you can cut it down multiple times. And what they'll do with this, and I'm about to do it here, is after you've done this pruning and cutting several times, probably this year I'm going to cut it all the way to the bottom.
Wow.
All the way down, and what's going to happen? It's going to resprout and make another whole tree. But in my paradigm, that's a good thing, because I'm getting another biomass production out of this plant. In the meantime, I've been feeding that material to my other fruit trees the whole time. So I've been covering the ground, giving all the microorganisms somewhere to live and somewhere to build soil for me. So I know that it's a scary species for a lot of people. Usually when it gets scary is when it's unmanaged.
Right,
if you're not cutting it, you let it get really big. It does have a really intense root system, and the branches are brittle, and the wind breaks them and they fall, and it just becomes a big mess. Well, I've talked to ranchers that hate the tree because it's always in the way. There's always a big branch that fell every time the wind blows. You know what I mean?
Commonly it's used as a windbreak around certain farms, and also there are eucalyptus farms where they're turning it into mulch, of course, too. That's a popular mulch.
Yep, and they're using it. The reason why that works for them is because they can cut it and it does regrow.
Yep.
So that's why they call it a sustainable product, because it actually regrows. They don't have to plant a new tree every time they cut it down.
Any koala bear problems?
Not yet.
I had to ask.
Not yet. And actually, this isn't even classified as a eucalyptus anymore.
Okay, that's true.
This is Corymbia torrelliana. It doesn't have quite as much of an odor as some of the eucalyptus. I know another reason they use it in some of the windbreaks around citrus is because it's supposed to help decrease the vector of some of the pests that travel from grove to grove, because it does have a little bit of an odor.
Okay, it's a repellent.
Whether this particular species is effective that way or not, I don't know.
Okay. So Matt, we're in your propagation shade house here, and you've got a number of different plants that I'm guessing you're using for yourself, but also to sell. What's going on in here?
So this is part of my selection process with this farm. As I said, I've been trialing a lot of things over the last 5 years, and I've started to identify what works the best for me and what I can recommend to my clients, which is a powerful thing to be able to do. To tell someone this is what I use and this is what I recommend.
Tried and true.
Versus this is what you can get on a seed catalog from somewhere. So what we have here, I've got two different types of pineapple that I grow a lot of. This one, I believe, is the Sugarloaf variety.
Yep.
What's special about Sugarloaf is that it's got white flesh, the core is soft, edible, and it's got low acid. So a lot of people have problems with the acidity of pineapple. You won't have a problem with this one. The only drawback is that it's a little spiky, so you got to wear gloves when you're dealing with it. But it is prolific and it does grow really well here. And then the other ones that I have are mostly what you would consider a traditional store pineapple. They grow big, robust, giant yellow ones. And if you've ever had a actually ripe pineapple, you know the difference. Even if it's the same type of pineapple, it makes a big difference growing at home. I also have two different types of sugarcane that I grow primarily here. I've got the Everglades tomato, a specific variety of sweet potato there, the malangas that I grow, and then several of the bananas that I've been selecting for a while, and a collection of perennial greens there. And this is just really the beginning of the nursery. I've only started this a few weeks ago. Once I get moved over to the other site, I'm going to set up a more permanent, with fabric on the ground, irrigation, and all that kind of stuff.
Because I was going to say,
this is all getting hand watered right now.
Oh, it is. Oh,
yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
And then I do have a collection of pretty rare palms. That's another part of my strategy here is to use these longer term palms as a field grown specimen palm that I can sell out later.
Okay.
So I have them incorporated, and then it can be a cash influx later.
You're working on edible, but also ornamentals as well.
Yeah, I call it having a well diversified plant folio.
I like that. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Speaking of rare plants, what's the rare? I mean, what kind of plant are you trying to get that you haven't gotten yet?
I have pretty much what I want.
Fulfilled your wish list.
I've kind of been there and done that with most of the stuff that you reasonably could grow here. I've gotten away more and more of really pushing the zone too much because it's just I want things that work. And that's when you get to a certain size planting, you can't baby everything. I can't pay attention and put cloth and baby everything. So it really, for me, it needs to be what works, and that's what the selection process is finding out who behaves, who gets along, who survives no matter what, and who's productive, and what tastes good, what do people want.
Yeah, that's important because we're sort of between and betwixt here. I mean, it's like olives, you know, it's a little bit too warm here for olives.
Yeah.
How about persimmons? Have you tried persimmons? Or
persimmons, I don't personally eat a lot of persimmons.
Yeah.
And I know we've used them in, like, when I've done landscape projects a little bit further north of here, we use them. But usually, because they defoliate in the wintertime, I usually put them in the backyard, not the front yard. Because before I got into this, I was doing more edible landscaping stuff. So it was an ornamentality, and then is it useful as well? And then how do you position it? Is it in the front yard, backyard? Did your neighbor see it or not see it?
Aesthetics.
So yeah, the aesthetics were really important. So persimmons never really grabbed me, but I mean, it's a great fruit. People absolutely love them.
So where do you see yourself in 10 years?
In 10 years, I'm going to be splitting my time between this farm and Costa Rica.
Wow.
And I'll also be continuing what I'm doing. What my main business is consultation for other property owners, specifically within an hour of here. We're rehabbing a citrus grove just down the street right now. I've got projects in Alva, Mayaca City, LaBelle. And so I'm doing kind of a traveling consultation, and then I'm actually helping with the implementation for close by clients, helping them get their water, get their earthworks done, mostly on a homestead scale, 5, 10, 20 acres.
Yeah.
I've kind of moved away from the edible landscaping. There's plenty of other people that are getting into that, and I'm kind of moving into the bigger scale projects. And I really want to progress this idea of regenerative agriculture, focusing on building soil, healthy plants, working with what nature can give, what actually can survive in your climate without being babied too much, and what is marketable. And that's a big side of it is, just because you can eat it doesn't mean you want to eat it. There's always going to be that balance of what do people actually want, or what can you make it into something better.
Right. But what you're doing, though, there is a demand for it, and I guess it's an increasing demand.
Absolutely. Yep. And then another thing that I do, I've been doing it for a while too, is I have a YouTube channel, and I explain what I'm doing as I go. So 10 years from now, I want to have a really cool compilation of started here, and you'll be able to see how it progressed. And,
your library of live.
Yeah, you'll probably see my hair turn gray, and I'll get wrinkly, and I'll have my beard grow back and forth several times. But and I also want to do more community type events. I'd like to have more people come here. As I said, we do our mango tastings. I think there's an opportunity for a lot of other tastings. I'd love to do jackfruit tastings, have sugar cane juice, event, all that kind of stuff. There's a season for everything. This could be a year-round type of endeavor. The only real challenge is dealing with the weather. So most people only want to be outside for about 4 or 5 months out of the year. In the summertime, they'd rather be inside.
True.
Unfortunately, most of the exciting stuff that's happening on this farm is in the summertime when it's hot and wet. But we're gonna figure out a balance that works for us and make something out of it.
Very good. And it's really a niche, because when you're talking about mango tasting, you think more Lee County and Pine Island and all that. But it's neat that you've got a place that you can do this here, because I think it's needed for sure.
Absolutely.